Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I don't know where are you watching this stream from, but it's another Chess Killer Tips podcast revisit episode. And today we are going to listen to the 7th episode. Well, this one is a little bit childish. I must warn you. It's really basic for the very beginners. So in case your rating is 1,000 or less, this episode might be useful to you. Otherwise, it's a little bit boring, but we'll try to refresh our memories and talk about the very basic starting moves, opening moves of a chess game, and hopefully for some of you it's going to be helpful. And just a small reminder that once a week, I started I think in January, I'm doing revisit of my Chess Killer Tips podcast that have been recorded a long time ago, starting from July 2007 till the last one was published in August 2009. And we're going through them one by one and discussing all the details and nice lines, nice studies, nice variations, nice combinations, that are discussed in this podcast. Well, in this particular one, as I already mentioned, it's a very basic line that is analyzed, but nevertheless, it's quite important to know the basic stuff. So let's listen to this episode and then discuss in a little bit more details what is this thing called opening, what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do in the openings. And this particular line we'll also have a look at. And here we go.
Welcome to Chess Killer Tips, brought to you by ChessQueen.com. Here's your host, Alexandra Kosteniuk.
Today, I'd like to speak about the position that arises after e4, e5, knight f3, f6. Many people and kids will recognize the move f6 immediately. It will remind them of games they may have played in which they either were white and quickly won a rook, or if they were black, they quickly lost the rook. Usually, after playing f6 and losing the game, black learns their lesson and decides never to play that odd second move again. But let's first have a look at some history. There is one game from the year 1620 where an Italian chess player named Greco was playing the white pieces. After e4, e5, knight f3, his opponent played f6. f6 is in fact a bad move, since black is not developing his pieces and is losing time from his development. Even though it's not so good, f6 is played relatively frequently. I meet it regularly when I play CMOS. So, you need to know how to face the move f6. You probably know that white has the nice move, knight takes e5, at his disposal. There are two lines you should know about. Let's first look at what happens after f takes e5. White plays queen h5 check, king e7, since after g6, black loses his rook on h8 after queen takes e5. So, after king e7, white plays queen takes e5 check, king f7, bishop c4 check. The game of Greco continued, king g6. If black plays d5 instead of king g6. It will lead after bishop d5, king g6, h4, h5. Here a very nice move, bishop takes b7, to a winning attack for white, since black cannot take on b7 in view of queen f5, king h6, and then d4, g5 the only move, and bishop takes g5. So, the opponent of Greco played king g6. And here black is getting checkmated after queen f5 check, king h6, d4 check, g5, h4. Here, for example, king g7, queen f7 check, king h6, h takes g5, checkmate. The better continuation for black after knight takes e5 is queen e7. Even though black is not losing immediately, he loses too much time and black's position is worse. A possible continuation after that is knight f3, queen takes e4 check, bishop e2. And white is much better, since black has only developed his queen. There are more interesting variations after queen e7, and I'll put the PGN file on the site for you to have a look at. So after e4, e5, knight f3, it's better for black to stick to knight c6, for example. A good way to learn chess is to start playing classical openings and watch how your favorite grandmasters or world champions play them. With time, you will start feeling the positions that arise from them, and you will get a sense where to put your pieces. That will contribute to your successful chess learning.
As usual, you will find all back episodes, as well as all positions and any links mentioned in the podcast on our site, chesskillertips.com.
Well, quite a basic episode, let's put it this way. But nevertheless, as I already mentioned, it's quite important to know the basic stuff as well. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hello everyone. And so we can say that the main theme of today's stream and today's episode revisit is the opening, the very first move that we do in a chess game. As you might know, a chess game is separated, in three stages. There is an opening, or like the very beginning of a chess game, the middle game, and the end game, the last one. The middle game is something in the middle, and the end game is something at the end. Very logical. Okay, and what exactly is an opening, how to play it, when does it start, and when does it finish? Usually when we talk about the opening and when we teach beginners the very basics, we say that there are three important rules of thumb that one must follow when playing an opening. The first one being the center. These four central squares are very essential for any chess game and any moment of a chess game, not only the opening, but starting from the very first moves, sides usually start to battle, to fight for the central squares. So we usually try to put our pawns onto the central squares. That's why e4 and d4 moves are the most popular ones. If we develop pieces, we develop them towards the center. Another quite popular move is knight to f3. We develop the knight towards the center, and the knight immediately starts to to control these two central squares. So center is number one. We fight for the center. All moves that we make usually are connected with helping our army to position itself on the central squares, or to prepare for an attack of this central squares later on. I mean, there are some lines where black or white doesn't seem to try to occupy the central squares, but they do develop their pieces, so they look at the center and get ready to attack it later on. So number one is the center. Number two is the development of your pieces, starting usually with the knights, and then comes the bishops, and number three is castle as soon as possible. So usually the first moves look something like this: e4, e5. It's like the most common moves that happen in the chess world. Knight f3, attacking the square, the pawn, and preparing to attack in the center. Black usually replies with knight c6. Here white either develops a bishop somewhere to c4 or to b5, or they can try to continue the attack of the center, but it's less common, the Scotch opening, the Scotch game. So usually something like this can happen. White, as you can see, developed already the knight and the bishop. Black also can try to develop the knight, and white, attacking this pawn. White can protect this pawn, bishop c5, and both sides castle, and that's three main ideas of any opening: center, development of your minor pieces, usually starting with knights, and then castle as soon as possible, because it's important to put your king into safety before you actually will start to open up the lines and do something to create an attack. Before attacking, it's usually important to think about the safety of your own pieces. Okay, so that's the three main points of any chess opening. Should you bring the king and queen to the center too? The king, no, definitely no. The king, you should try to hide behind your pawns and your pieces. What about the queen? I mean, I mentioned what we should do in the opening, right? Try to fight for the center, try to develop our minor pieces as soon as possible, and then try to castle. What we should not do in the opening: we shall not waste time by moving the side pawns. We shall not do that, because while we're doing that, our opponent will get control of the central squares, and then it will be difficult for us to play a good chess game, because chess is a game like we have two armies, the white army and the black army, and how you position your soldiers, your pieces, means a lot on how you will be able to proceed with attacking plans. And if your pieces are miscoordinated, placed a little bit on the one side, a little bit on the other side, you really need to combine all the forces together, and while the center prepare your further actions. And if you do everything right, in the right way, then your attack might succeed. So we don't do moves on the side of the board. We try to avoid developing our pieces and putting our pieces to the side of the board. It's definitely a big no. As we say, the knights on the rim are dim. So always to the center. To the center. We are not bringing out the queen too early. Why? We know this famous scholar's mate when white is trying to checkmate as soon as on move 3. But this move, queen to h5, is considered to be not the strongest one. Why? Because if black knows how to protect himself, he will, and then your queen might become a target. You will need to spend time to protect it, and you might end up blundering something or losing very precious time, because time in chess sometimes as important as material. Okay guys, let's move on. So we don't bring out the king and the queen too early. We try to fight for the center, develop our minor pieces and castle. And we go on e4, e5, knight f3, like basic moves, attacking the pawn on e5. And now in order to protect it, usually black plays knight to c6. It's the most common way. There is another way to play, which is knight f6, called the Petrov defense, or the Russian game as we call it in Russia. It's a counterattack. Black is counterattacking the another central pawn, the white central pawn. There is an opening called the Philidor defense. Philidor proposed to play this way. Why? He thought that pawns are very important, and he was trying to prepare like pawns attack immediately, but this move is possible to make, but it's considered a little bit passive, because when you play d6 you kind of stop your dark squared bishop, and thus it will not be able to go to c5, which is more active than e7, for example. And today we're going to analyze the line that starts with f6, and I'm sure many of you are aware that f6 is a bad move. Why is it a bad move? Well, because this move weakens the king, and white can punish black for this weakening right away. Of course, there are many good moves for white here, such as d4, attacking the central pawn once again, such as bishop c4, developing the bishop, putting it on the a2 diagonal, and thus stopping black from castling a few moves later. But the strongest move here is knight takes e5. It's a knight sacrifice which becomes possible because of this h5 e8 diagonal weakening, and because of this unfortunate move f6 that black just made. If black accepts the sacrifice, the idea is that after queen h5 check, it's a double attack. If black plays g6, then queen takes e5 follows with another double attack, and then the queen will take the rook on h8, and white has an extra exchange, meaning they won a rook for a knight. If black tries to save the material and plays and moves the king to e7, then a very strong attack is starting, and black is already in a big trouble. For example, after king g6, black is losing after queen f5 check, d4, discovered check, g5, h4, another attack, a very nice move that's not only attacking the g5 pawn, which is pinned because the king is hiding behind it, but also preparing the rook, opening up the rook that is about to enter the game with a devastating effect. King to g7, and Here's a very nice checkmate that first was published in the 17th century, played by Greco, a very famous Italian player at that time, and thus illustrating that knight after knight to f3, f6 is quite unfortunate. Of course, black can play a little bit better. They can play d5 here, trying to open up the bishop. That will help to protect this f5 square. But in that case, h4 again is a very strong move, preparing h5. And after h5, white can play bishop takes b7 with the idea to checkmate the king after d4. Well, not really checkmate, but rather win the queen. So bishop takes b7 is a very strong idea here. And after bishop d6, queen goes to a5, still is keeping under control this f5 square. So if the bishop takes on b7, then again the same story. The same story will happen, winning the game. So if black didn't know anything, and I can tell you that f6 move I've seen quite often in my simultaneous exhibitions that I give once in a while. Players who just begin to play, they do sometimes tend to make those weak moves such as f6, and of course if you know the right way to continue, you will get a big advantage. Here f takes e5, as we've already seen, is a bad move, and if black already started the game with this unfortunate f6, it's better to continue the game with queen to e7, because the idea is that queen h5 doesn't really work here because of g6 and queen takes e4, winning the knight. So it's a double attack. So white shall not give the check on h5. White shall just retreat the knight. So black can get back, win back the central pawn on e4. But after bishop to e2, we see that all black's minor pieces are still on the starting positions. The king is on the open file together with the queen. So white's plan is very simple, just to castle. White, on the other hand, already developed the knight and the bishop and ready to castle. And after a castle, rook e1 will be very unpleasant, because black needs to spend a few more moves in order to protect himself, in order not to lose the queen. And if after knight f3, black plays d5 with the idea to take the pawn on e4 with a pawn, then d3, d takes e4, d takes e4, queen takes e4, bishop to e2. The position remains again quite unpleasant for black, although in 1897 Mikhail Chigorin, the famous Russian player, actually even managed to save the game. I don't know why he started the game with f6, mystery to me, but somehow probably he was in the mood to he wasn't in such a hilarious mood and decided to give it a try, and so even managed to save the game here. But in fact, after queen to g6, he lost the queen, and just because he played stronger, he was able to create a counterattack. White didn't pay attention to black's threats, played knight to e4, and actually was lucky to make a draw. That's how the game ended. Okay. By the way, I don't know why it says a draw, because here black can checkmate white in a very beautiful way. Let's see. Rook to h1. then bishop h2, check, after king g3, check, and checkmate. Okay, I don't know whether this game actually happened or not happened, but of course after queen e7, knight f3, d5, d3, black's position is much better. You just need to pay attention to the ideas of your opponent. If bishop f5, trying to grab this pawn, you just gladly give it, because after queen takes e2, queen d5 is very strong, and black is so behind in development that this pawn does not really matter a lot. White is about to castle and start the attack on the king. And here's the same story. It's just too dangerous for white, to play in this position. There are several ways for white to continue. You can even play queen to e1, with the idea after queen to e4 to play bishop d3. A very nice winning move. Check, and then winning the bishop. So, in order to sum up, if you are playing black and your opponent after e4, e5 plays knight f3 and attack your central square, it would be much wiser to save it, to protect it with knight to c6, a very classical move. But of course here you should know a lot of theoretical lines. After bishop c4, the Italian game, after bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez, after d4, which is called the Scotch game. Also some sidelines such as s3, c3, the Ponziani opening, such as knight to c3, starting the four knights game. So there is a lot of theory. Nowadays you cannot really avoid it. And yep, you need to get ready for all these lines little by little. And actually I was asked how to study openings, what is the best way, what are the books to read. It's difficult to suggest one move. I always suggest to start with analyzing games of great chess champions, of great chess players, to see what lines you like. Do you look for short lines, or you prefer quiet positional ways to play chess games? And then you need to adapt your you need to you need to learn little by little all those opening variations, and of course books and lessons, online lessons can learn a lot. Actually I'm saying that an opening, I think, is the most difficult part to learn by yourself. If you can study an endgame by yourself using the greatest chess books that exist today, and all this workouts possibilities to play with computer. Thank you so much for the support, Carvajal. Thank you so much. So if a middle game can be worked also on your own by solving a great number of chess puzzles and analyzing games of great chess champions, then openings might be quite tricky, especially nowadays with a huge number of opening lines and opening variations. And that's where a trainer, a coach can help you. He can or she can guide you navigate you in this ocean of opening theory, work on chess repertoire, show the very basics that you must know. And if you have an opportunity to find someone to guide you in this opening theory ocean, that would be great. If not, still there are some great chess books that explain you the basics. the very basics of openings that you can start with. Unfortunately, I'm not really aware of such books in English, like that that you can learn the basics of openings. But there are many books in Russian that I recommended in my article on chess books. And so for those of you who speak Russian, I can give a link to this article. It's published on chess.com. It's been and let me see your questions. Yes, well, actually chess is a very complicated game, because now I say say the rules and that you should follow or shall not follow, and then comes this exceptions. So yes, there are some lines where queens move out early in order to achieve something. So really every case is special, but as we say, in order to master the exceptions, in order to use the exceptions, you should first master the basic rules. So for kids, I mean, yes, there are some lines where queen goes to, for example, a4, gives a check and then win back the pawn, but they're still quite rare. So probably it would be better to avoid showing those lines to the kids at the very first steps, and show them the lines where minor pieces take the most part in the game. Let me see. Any recommendation for 1100 rating trying to improve? Well, I think you know, chess is a very complex game. It's a very difficult game to study, and it feels overwhelming if you just, look at the chessboard and try to understand what steps to take. So you better separate this big and enormous game of chess into small blocks, and you start working little by little every day on each block. So as I mentioned, there is an opening, there is a middle game, there is an end game, and you definitely can do a lot on your own nowadays, using the materials that you have at your hands, and that you can do, I mean, on the end game, on the middle game, and on the opening. So just try to work out the schedule, and every day work a little bit on every single section of chess. So for example, you should put a goal of learning one endgame, one particular endgame. Start of course with the basic king and pawn versus king. There are plenty of positions to learn, and then go on. Again, wonderful books, wonderful on chess.com. You can listen to lessons and videos which are great, and just go a little bit steady, slowly but steady. What are the most common mistakes beginners make? Well, they tend actually, I can find like a game, an example game of my students, and show you probably for the next episode. I should do that to show you to the mistakes they make. What do they do wrongly usually? They tend to thank you for the subscription. Beginners tend to forget about those basic principles of any chess opening. So center, development, castle, and then prepare for the attack. They want to attack immediately. They look for something a piece to attack, they forget that, for example, they just developed a piece. And what is the reason to move it again? So they move one piece several times in the opening, and just in order to create an attack. I'm just trying to find a good example of beginner's play to demonstrate you. It's always easier to demonstrate. Well, probably I should do it next time. So yes, they just tend to forget about development. They do move the pieces several times just to win a piece, or just to try to attack, or they start to attack. They know that checkmating is so important, and they know that if they happen to create a checkmate threat, there are good chances that their opponent will forget about it, and they just the only goal they see is the opponent's king, and they just try so hard to create a checkmating threat that they forget about everything else. And they also forget that actually when you create a checkmating threat, your opponent can protect himself from being checkmated. And okay, let's see. What about the Vienna system? Yes, Vienna system is also one of the possible opening. What's in between the opening and middle game? Well, as I have no idea what is between the opening and middle game. Yes, they're unsure when to attack, and they're about my match with Levy. I'm glad that you liked it, and I hope there is going to be a rematch. But this Thursday, actually tomorrow, I'm going to play another match with comments by Hikaru Nakamura, and Levy is going to comment. Actually, I'm going to play with Alex Ostrovsky tomorrow, starting at 5 p.m. Central European time. So hopefully that this match will also give you enough entertainment. And well, good for you. So you're almost, but you know, in chess, this almost thing, this almost, I can also say that I almost won. For example, last night when I played a Title Tuesday, I played a very good game against Eric Hansen, and I almost won it. Like, the computer was showing +7 from me, but almost just doesn't always count. Unfortunately. Yes, I can say almost many times, and unfortunately it does not always work. And I'm still trying to show you some games. I'm gonna pick up a game that can be useful to show, but probably I should have thought about it before. Well, let's analyze this one. Let's analyze this game. And I'm sure you can give me a lot of examples. Let's analyze this game. For example, no, it's not the game of Greco, but a game of two kids that were playing in an online tournament. Bishop c4. White starts with the bishop opening. With the bishop opening, which is a great opening to start, the only problem with this opening, since white is not attacking the e5 pawn immediately, black can use this time to create some play in the center. Knight f6 is the number one reply, I think, after bishop to c4, and after d3, c6, and d5, one of the possibilities for black. In this particular game, the player that was playing black, he didn't know the bishop opening. He saw it for the first time, but he made like a very logical, in some way, move. Okay, white moved the bishop out, and I will move the bishop out. So the black player. Okay, nothing bad about this move. And here comes a very interesting part. Of course, queen h5. Queen h5 follows with a threat to give a checkmate on f7. Well, the player who was playing black was experienced enough to see this threat and to protect the square. Queen to e7 followed. Okay, very good move. Knight to c3. White continues to play quite aggressively, and what the beginners lack in their game is to pay the attention to the opponent's moves. And I'm not sure how this ability what is the best way to teach it. Usually it comes from experience. So you make a move, your opponent reacts, you understand that you didn't think about your opponent's reaction, you lose a piece, you lose a game. So here comes the next game. You again forget to look for ideas for your opponents, because every move must have a purpose, and in most of the cases when your opponent makes a move, it means he has some ideas and sometimes some threats, and you need to pay attention to those threats. And if you don't pay attention to those threats, you miss them, you blunder, and you lose the game. And here, a very classical example. White moved to c3, and if we ask ourselves, what is the idea behind this move? Okay, we can tell he's just developing a knight. Well, yes, but why did he develop this knight and not that one? I mean, after knight f3, the idea not only to develop, but to attack the central pawn, right? After knight c3, the idea to develop, and at the same time, white is threatening to go to d5, the central square, and to attack our queen, to attack the pawn, and it can be quite unpleasant. So if we look at the last move of our opponent and we ask ourselves, okay, what's next? If it's white to move, what would he do? We'll probably immediately notice this move, and then we can go from there and can ask ourselves, what can we do in order to protect the square? What are the best ways to play here? It's black to move, and white is threatening to play knight d5. And at the same time, these pieces, they're quite annoying. I mean, what are they doing here? So we can make a very nice move, which is knight to f6. We attack the queen, we protect the central square, and black is getting a very good position, because white's queen needs to retreat. And then black can continue development. He can play d6, he can play castle, he can play knight c6. Instead, in this game, black continued to play symmetrical moves, let's put it this way, and played knight to c6. Here comes the problem. Knight to c6 is played, but knight d5 follows. White white's knight is threatening to take the queen, and what's worse, the queen cannot really move away. I mean, it can move away, but in that particular case, this f7 square is starting to is not protected, and here comes a combination. After that, knight takes e7, queen takes f7, and then queen takes g7, and white is winning. So you see, one inaccurate move sometimes can lead to big problems, and that's why it's so important to pay attention to your opponent's ideas and opponent's moves. Yes, I didn't mention, but that's true. Chess for everyone. C6 is a good move. I mean, it's not a bad move. I mean, it's much better than knight to c6, but it's a little bit unfortunate to place this pawn onto the c6 square where the knight actually belongs. So if we have a choice, and the choice here is to play knight to f6, attack the queen, protect the d5 pawn, and then develop our knight to c6, or move our pawn quite passively to c6, it's better to pick a more aggressive way. Let's put it this way. c6 is a little bit it's possible, but not the best continuation, because it takes out the very important square for the knight. Knight to c6, knight d5 followed. So queen to d8 is bad here because of this very nice tactics. But yeah, I should say that here black managed to make the best move and played knight to f6. It's a counterattack. It's very hard to find because the queen was under attack, and usually beginners tend to panic when the piece is under attack and either move it away or just simply blunder it. But here the player that was playing black managed to find a very good move. The idea, it's a counterattack. The idea behind this move is that after knight takes e7, knight takes on h5, and yes, white is better because he can either take on c8 or on d6 and get a little bit better endgame, but nothing terrible has happened yet, and everything is ahead. All the play, it will depend how you will play the endgame. We reach the endgame immediately. Sometimes it happens in chess that after openings, middle game is skipped, the queens are exchanged, like here already on the move 5, and we reach an endgame. But in the game, white did not want to exchange the queens and play queen to h4, which is a blunder. Again, I don't know what they were thinking about, but definitely it would be very wise to ask yourself, what is opponent going to do? What moves? And knight takes d5 should come up to our mind, taking the knight, attacking the queen, and after queen takes e7, knight d to e7, and immediately black is winning here, and they won the game quite easily afterwards. So quite an unfortunate example, I must say, of white's play, and that happens quite often in kids' games. For example, another example here where white tried to give a scholar's mate after bishop c4, again queen h5. Black knew how to protect this square. They played g6, queen f3, again trying to give a scholar's mate, knight to f6, queen to b3, again attacking the f7 square, but actually black could have played knight to d4 here, After bishop takes f7, play king to e7. It's a very known line, and the bishop here is lost because there is no square left for the queen to stay. So the queen needs to go away, and then that's how black wins. Well, they didn't know this line. They played queen to e7, which is also a very good move. Knight to f3, bishop to g7. Black is not trying to win the pawn yet, although it was possible, but they prefer to finish the development, which is quite understandable. And here white, instead of playing d3, instead of protecting the pawn or playing castle, they decide to continue to attack, thus again spending time to attack when they are not ready yet, they are not developed, and we can see that black is dominating. I mean, okay, a few attacking moves by white have been done, but black defended himself very well, and now he can start to attack white's pieces because they are so misplaced, and white is in a completely lost position. Yes, beginners often play symmetrically because they don't know the opening. It's not necessary to know the opening. What is important, and what actually was the main topic of our today's episode 7 of the episode 7 of our today's stream, is how to play the opening if you don't know the concrete lines and moves, but just using these basic rules, which are fight for the center. These central squares are very important, so develop your pawns and pieces towards them. Then fight for the center, develop your minor pieces, castle. So that's three main points that you should focus on when playing a game, and it doesn't matter how your opponents play. You should always think about this very important rules and try to follow them, because there are so many openings in chess that it's very unlikely you will know everything from like the very first moves, and you will most likely face a situation when you have no idea what the opening theory is and how is better to react. Of course, it's better if you know what to do in every single line, but I can assure you that even when I play a game, and I have I've been playing chess for more than 30 years, I still face a situation where I don't remember, or I forgot how I'm supposed to play, and but if I happen to see something unusual going on, I try to follow those rules, and usually they help me a lot. Of course, there are some tricky lines, such as gambits, that you better know them before you start your game. But if you don't know, it's nothing terrible about that. Just remember, develop over the center, fight for the center, develop your minor pieces, castle, and pay attention to the last move of your opponent. Because if he plays something like d5, for example, and you were about to play bishop c4, I doubt you're going to play bishop c4 here, right? So we need to be flexible. We need to look for our opponent's reaction, for our opponent's moves, and adjust accordingly. And it's very, very important to play, in order to start a chess game correctly, in order to play an opening correctly, because if you blunder or make a very bad move immediately at the beginning of your chess game, often it's over. Unfortunately, I mean, chess in this way, if you blunder a piece, if you make a bad move, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to get out of this unfortunate situation and win the game anyway. So it's very, 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 very crucial to pay attention to the first moves, to create what we call an opening repertoire, to know like the first moves for each reply of your opponent and the ideas. And go on from there. So I'm going to end my stream quite soon, but I'd like to answer some questions that you might have. So if you have some questions about openings in general, make sure to post them in the chat. About the match with Levi Rosman. First of all, we played the match. Second, I did a special stream dedicated to this match, and I analyzed the most like 10 all-know moments that I called them of the match. I'm going to share the video link. I mean, you can find it in my Twitch channel if you're a sub, or you can watch it on my YouTube channel. And you see, one match is of course a nice event, but in chess world, one tournament, one match, as soon as it's done, as soon as you analyze the games, you go on. You don't, leave and analyze it all over again and again and again and again. There are more games to play, there are more matches to play, so this one is already behind. It was a very nice event, a very nice match. I enjoyed it very much, but as I said, there is next one tomorrow already coming. There are tournaments being played online, like Title Tuesdays that I played yesterday, and I played like 11 interesting games that I'd like to analyze, so the life goes on. And I can assure you there are many more interesting moments coming up every day, so I cannot really focus on just one particular Blitz match. Levi posted a video about our match. Great, I should check it out. What would be my next move here? Actually, I have a I have something to confess to. One opponent in the Arena King just played this opening against me, and I lost terribly. I mean, completely. It was such a terrible game that I'm still disgusted of my play. I mean, I reacted correctly. I knew that I have to take on d5. After e4, I played queen to e2, pinning the pawn. After knight f6, I attack it. After queen takes d5, here my theoretical knowledge start to become blurry, and for some reason I didn't. Here, what would be the most natural move? Develop or attack? But I decided to take the pawn and get into endgame, and in the endgame I played terribly. But it would be better to create an additional attack. Actually, I can attack it like this or like this. And but of course, since we try to avoid moving one piece the same, here you see I say try to avoid moving a piece twice in the opening. So maybe, and after knight to c3, bishop b4 pins the knight. So maybe the best move here to continue is knight b to d2, creating a threat. I want just to win this pawn, and if black, thank you for subscription, if black protects this pawn, I can attack it once again and then win it. But I need to be careful because I'm a little bit behind in development. Black will try to develop the pieces somehow and make a castle so they can attack these two guys. But I mean, generally speaking, I should have a very big advantage here. And instead I decided to exchange the queens. I took on e4. Then for some reasons that I cannot sometimes understand, I start doing very strange things, even with all the experience that I have. Okay, I want to exchange the queens. That's fine, but why to take first? If I can try to develop first and try to force my opponent to take, thus developing my pieces and get a very pleasant endgame. Instead, I take and I start suffering with not being able to develop my knight to c3 because the knight is so well placed in the center, and a few more inaccurate moves and it leads to a complete disaster. I lost this endgame like in a 10 more moves. I was completely lost. So don't follow my example. You see that sometimes bad moves and bad moments happen even in my games. Center games pawn. Center games pawn push. Is it a bad move, bad opening? Well, guys, d4, it's possible, but again, we should ask ourselves, why do we want to bring out our queen so early? It's possible. It's called the central game, and white's idea is to develop the queen side as soon as possible, castle long, but it's quite risky. If you're playing white, you don't have to opt for such risky openings in order to get an opening advantage. You can try something like more classical with less risk, because if you play d4 or if you play f4, it's interesting, nice openings, but you understand that you are taking 2 or 3 times more risk that you that will just require from you playing perfectly later on. You cannot make inaccurate moves after such an opening. F4, it's a very interesting opening. Probably we will play one thematical tournament in my ChessQueen club on chess.com later on. D4 is a possibility, and after e takes d4, you don't have to take with the queen. Actually, you can try to get the game into the scotch game, but then you can start with knight f3 and play d4 later on. What do you think about the Sicilian dragon for black in comparison to the Najdorf? Well, I think it's quite known. The evaluation, the Najdorf is, if you know both those lines, it's fine for you to play them. But in order to play the dragon variation, you really need, the Najdorf is the same actually, but the dragon is more challenging in this way, because the attack starts immediately. The opposite side castles require very concrete moves, and it's very important to learn theory if you decide to go for such sharp variations such as the Sicilian dragon. It's doing fine, but I know that some lines are very shaky. You're thinking of studying the Vena, well, for white. If you're thinking to study it for white, I would recommend you studying other openings. Vena, there is nothing actually, not so much left to study. Knight c3, knight f6, f4, d5 is a very good reply, and if black knows that most likely you will get into a quite a tricky position. I mean, you can still try to study g3, but why to spend so much time? If you have some time to study, it's even better to study the bishop opening, which sometimes gets to the same idea as the Vienna opening, but avoids this d5 breakthrough immediately, which is quite unfortunate in the Vienna game. Well, the accelerated dragon is definitely worse than the regular dragon. Well, if you've been playing a lot of King's Indian and Sicilian dragons, that means that you enjoy to put your bishop on g7 in fianchetto. King's Indian defense good for beginners. I would not recommend to start with the King's Indian defense. I would better recommend to start with something more classical when you do fight for the center, such as the Slav, the Queen's Gambit declined, because here you fight for the center. In the King's Indian, you kind of give away this center and hope to create an attack later on. But it's strategically quite dangerous opening, and it's very hard to beginning because for beginners, because you give up the center and hope to create an attack later on. So it's better to start with trying to fight for the center, trying to play the central openings, and move on later on, switch to something more modern, let's put it this way. Well, guys, I'm not going to teach you any particular openings or lines today. I might consider it later on. You play Queen's Gambit exclusively with white? Well, that's good. That's good. There are a lot of openings and lines to learn in the Queen's Gambit, right? Because the Queen's Gambit, you should be prepared for King's Gambit accepted, you should be prepared for Slav, you should be prepared for e6. Just try to prepare every your reaction for every single reply for black. I don't think you need to add something straight away for your opening repertoire. Later on, you can consider playing with move orders and starting with knight f3 and not hurry and play c4 immediately, but it's optional. If you know how to react to the Queen's Gambit accepted and you enjoy these positions, I don't see anything wrong with starting with the second c4. Your win rate is much better when playing black, while when I play white, my win rate is around 26. Oof. Well, if you enjoy playing if your rate is so good with black playing the King's Indian, meaning knight f6 to g6, and your win rate for white is so bad, try to switch to knight f3 g3. You will be playing the same King's Indian, just with an extra tempo. And what is good with knight f3 g3 is that well, you don't really need to learn extra theory if you're already familiar with the King's Indian lines for black. Well, there are definitely many traps for white and for black in the opening, but again, I won't be able, to tell you all the traps just in 5 minutes. I think it's better if we go step by step, opening by opening. It will definitely be much more important. So I will consider doing like an opening stream once in a while, focused on a particular opening. So make sure to send your comments, your ideas, what openings would interest you the most, and then we'll go from there. How does it sound? Yes, I do play with the followers. Sometimes, Chess for Everyone, I do suggest you to join my Discord server and follow my Instagram, because I try to to stick to this habit of publishing my weekly schedule on Sunday for the coming week. So this week, well, usually we have a tradition now set up. We have a tradition with, I have a stream playing with subs every Saturday. And this Saturday it's coming at 6 p.m. Central European Time. I'm going to play with the subs of my channel. So thank you so much, everyone, for your subscription today. And but I do stream every day. I do stream every day on my channel. Just make sure to join my Discord and see the schedule. Follow my channel. Tomorrow, as I said, there is going to be another interesting match with Alex Ostrovsky starting at 5 p.m. Central European Time. On Friday there is Arena King, and on Sunday, as I already mentioned, on Sunday I'll play with the subs of my channel, and on Saturday, I'm sorry, and on Sunday we are playing in Arena in my ChessQueen club on chess.com. So that's the plan. That's the plan. Actually, if you'll give me a moment, I will try to put up a schedule of this week so you know it. But again, you can find it in Discord. Yes, I think this is the schedule. This is the schedule of today's week, and I do publish these schedules every Sunday, so just make sure to follow again. And now I'm going to finish this stream. Let me see who is rating today, so I get who is streaming today now, so I can give a rate. Alessia Santeramo is doing an educational speed run. Okay, so I'll give a rate to her channel and say hello to Alessia, and I hope to see you soon. Hopefully this stream, you enjoyed this stream, and I will be very happy to see you back soon. Now take care, guys. Take care and all the best. Have a good day, have a good night. See you soon. Bye.